Guys, tell me why I was today years old when I learned the hard way that a cultural fit is just as important as a technical fit when hiring in your business. Hi, my name is Connie and I'm the host of the Bold Business Diaries, where we talk about our authentic journeys as early stage founders and much more. So we are shooting at Kayana, and this is where we'll be having our conversation today. Are you ready? This topic has its pain points and its amazing, beautiful lessons. Today, I'll be sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly of the people component of business so far for me in my 5th year of business. And I'll give a contrast between my first 2 years and the more recent 2 years. So 2021 and 2022, then 2023 and 2024. So let's begin this contrast. Where did the journey start? The first year for me, when it came to hiring, that was non-existent. As a startup founder, you know how we do. You are doing everything. And at this time, I was with my co-founder. So we were doing everything. We had our hand in every single department. And that's just what it meant for us, that we had to do that. We did not see the need for hiring, and we didn't think we have the capacity in our first year to do that. But even there's something very important that I learned in my first year of business when it comes to the people component and building a team, is that you need to be able to admit when you need the help. So when we started, we were the operations. We were literally everywhere. We couldn't even think of business leadership. We were leading ourselves. We were our only leaders. You are leading, Connie is leading Connie, and my co-founder is leading herself, and we were just exchanging that value. And at first, we were the very business itself. So people were not something we were thinking of. And it took us many months, quite a bit of time, to start thinking, oh my, we're kind of overwhelmed. We can't even elevate to that aspect of doing more of things like sales, and very important parts that we felt we needed to elevate to. So in the first year, the most important thing that happened to us in regards hiring was admitting when we needed help, when we were overwhelmed. And both of us felt it. We were like, it's time. We actually need to duplicate what we have done for the past couple of months and allow someone else to do exactly what we were doing. So we were ready to duplicate ourselves in the operations. The other thing that stood out for our first year is setting the foundations, just the two of us. And I know that may sound, okay, just the two of you setting the foundations, which ones? So we started to identify things like our ideal clients. We started to identify red flags when it comes to clients. We started to realize, okay, this is how operations looks like for us, but this is how administration looks like for us. So when we were dividing those different tasks between ourselves, we would give feedback to each other that this person, when they're handling administration, and that was me actually, I was noticing things about slowly our systems and our processes, what we need to survive first, then of course to actually succeed. So my co-founder and I were the foundation, and I want to let you know, you are also the foundation, even culturally, behaviorally, of where your company or your business is also growing or going to as early as in your first year. So it matters if you are not being diligent. It matters if you are running away from responsibility. It matters if you are not owning up to your mistakes. Why? Because you will trickle that down as soon as you make it a habit. As early as this first year, knowing your ideal clients and the non-ideal will help you with people in the long run, because they will experience exactly what you experienced in your first year. So for us, for example, in operations, we got to realize that with some of our clients, they were not supportive in the administration. So we had to take it on as a task. And we found it was a deep contrast to other clients who realized that our task is the service provision. The administration in this B2B relationship falls on them. So we did our research and we realized that our ideal client shares in the work that we do administratively. They link us to, let's say, its parents and children, because we mostly worked with schools. So that was our first year. We didn't admit it immediately that we need help. In fact, we thought it would be wasteful to increase our human resource. So we did everything, we distributed the work between ourselves, but at a certain time, we had to admit that we need help. And when we did, it began the process of what you would call HR, people, human capital, whatever you'd call it. It started from there. So let's go to year 2, 2022. Whew, it gets ugly. So that's a disclaimer. In 2022, we started to actually put in the work to multiply ourselves, to duplicate what we do so that we train other successors, so that we could climb in our function. So we could go maybe to being integrators, more of the visionaries that we are. So in this time, we started our training process. It looked like 3 months after our interview, we would train someone, and then from there, we would get them going with their contract. But let me tell you the major things we learned from our interviews, onboarding, and training. Number one is that we needed to have clear communication of our expectations. I'll start with the story that actually led to this lesson. So when we did our interviews, we, for some reason, were mostly focusing on a technical fit, someone who can do the job, right? Someone who can just literally is competent or is excellent at the task. So that's a technical fit. And when we were doing our interviews, we were mostly asking about the technical questions and giving a bit of vision, sure, like who we are, where we're going, but we didn't go too deep into behavioral things or even things like core values. And I'll share why I'm mentioning that so early. So when we did our interviews, our questions were not as deep. So when we got people into the training process, they started to fall off. I know you know that I know that you know that's a very painful part of hiring. When you have set up a system or a way of doing and it doesn't work, or along the way, it quickly filters people off. But that's also a good thing because it saves you the time and the energy of keeping the wrong person on your team. So our training process would remove some people just automatically, and we were questioning why. So why is a very powerful question. And that's the question I'd pass on to you that we can learn from. So why is it? Why is it that people are falling off in the training period, but they were making it through the interview process? So we had to really question our systems, and we went back to sharing more about our vision, trying to find out if the person on the other seat, on the other side of the interview, is interested in where we are going, what we are building. And we started to incorporate vision casting in our interviews. When we did that, we filtered off people who did not even go to our training process. They stopped there and then. They were not willing to go where we were going, and it did not interest them, and it was not something they were passionate about. They felt that there was a cost to it, and when they counted the cost, they'd rather not go any further in the process. But it started to attract people who were so interested in where we were going. So vision casting is something that we added in year 2 of hiring that gave us so much feedback. The other thing we amplified was our onboarding. We started to describe to them what you would experience. So you will experience 3 months of training where we will pay for your training. But the moment you drop off halfway without a very valid reason, something I'm thinking, like a health issue or something like that, you would have to reimburse us back the training fees that we accounted for you. That was a very painful part for anyone who was counting the cost with us. They felt, I'll go through the training and then stop midway and I'll have to pay this back. So when we started to introduce consequences, fines, and clearer expectation on that give and take, that exchange of hiring, we noticed that some people dropped off even faster, others stayed. And those who stayed showed us a resilience. It was like we were testing our core values as we put these things into our contract. When we put those fines or those consequences or those expectations, we were testing resilience. We were testing consistency. And it started to show early for us when we refined what? Our interview process and our onboarding process. We looked at our contract a bit more because we noticed that some people would start the job, they'd be on the job. We literally are now in the apprenticeship part We've done the interview, we've done the training. Now we're taking you with us, for the ride with a client. And somewhere in between, and this was part of one of my most painful experiences, we had gone through those two processes, and now we are in the apprenticeship part. And in the apprenticeship part, we were doing a review. I think it was a quarterly review, and we asked them, how is it? How is it going? How do you like the work? All these questions. Is there something we should know on your end? And they told us that they would be traveling to another country very soon. And we were like, it's something normal, but we were taken aback, because we realized that these are actually questions we asked earlier. We asked, are there any life changes you're expecting very soon in your journey? Is there something you anticipate to happen? And when we asked, we thought things like traveling would also be there. So for her to share this with us suddenly in the process, when we are in the apprenticeship part, it was quite disorienting. And she did actually come off of the process. When that happened, we introduced something new. But before I say what we did to fix it, can I just say how painful it is? Because I know this part usually sucks for us as business owners. You set up a system, and then somewhere along the way, it doesn't work. So it means you need to go back to fix something else, or to sort some other part you did not account for. And we, at this point, this is year 2, we finally started to learn to take things less personally. Because coming up to this moment, we used to think that when people come off of our process, they leave, they exit, it's somewhat personal. And this was us flexing or learning how to use our leadership skill, understanding that this is the emotional cost of leadership in business, that people will leave, people will change their mind. You might even change your mind. It's all that and then more. So from this, what did we learn? We decided that from that experience, we would introduce the concept of a successor. So we said that in our business, because of how it is and the client we work with, we would be thoroughly hurt or injured by a sudden kind of, not even just layoff, someone quitting suddenly, because of the systems we have, the kind of clients we have, and the timetables that run between us and our clients. If you are planning to leave and you give in your notice, we will give you in turn someone to train for the last couple of weeks that you are in our business, and they will be your successor. We also realized that our interviews needed an aspect of vision casting. The technical part, for some reason, we had it put down, but the vision casting essence, looking for those people who would go with us in the long run. We realized that it heavily requires you as the founder to have an aspect of that already put down. Where are you going? Someone who joins you in your business, where would they expect to be in the next 1 year? What growth curve do you have to offer them? What opportunities? How are they going to leverage on being in your business and on your team? When people hear that from you with clarity in your interviews or when hiring, it will kind of balance expectations for both of you. In year 1 and year 2, we were very fixed on looking for a technical fit, and we did get one. We were also kind of had a blind spot about a cultural fit, someone who fits with the culture and the core values of your team. We were not so keen on that one, but guess what? We attracted someone of that type. So let's go to part 2, where year 1 and year 2 pours into year 3 and year 4.
A quick one. Which moment did you realize I actually cannot continue functioning as Connie and my co-founder? And you're like, we need to bring someone on board. And what pain led to that moment?
Okay. I remember that day very well. I was coming from teaching. At this point, we were in operations, so I was a dance teacher. I was teaching kids. And this was a class that I had in between the week. And I was super tired. We were doing all the classes, my co-founder and I. And I remember on my way back home, I also needed payment for a couple other operational things, but we did not have it because, remember, we are also the finance, we are the admin. So for you to be able to identify the finances for this operational cost, You're also trying to understand, wait, did this client not pay so that we actually have this in the bank? That moment was hectic. It was painful because I knew this tired Connie, who is just from teaching, who is just from doing the operational function, is supposed to remove that hat and literally pick the next one and wear the financial hat, and then pick the sales hat after that to question, why did this moment happen in this way? What sales issue happened for us to not have anticipated this? So it was a painful moment for my co-founder and I to be experiencing that pain, but to have to be seated in the seat that needs to solve it, as well as the one that needs to mitigate it and the one that needs to analyze it. So can you imagine going through that in your first year? You're almost questioning yourself, like, will this be sustainable in the long run? So those were the painful moments that we realized we need help. So we sat down and asked ourselves, what do we need help for? And it was obvious. It was from the operation. Let's get into year 3 and 4. So in year 3, something amazing happened. We got 2 right people. The first one was a technical fit, and the second one was a cultural fit. Looking back, I did not know these words, but let me explain how it all happened. For the first person, we had a very clear job description and a very clear a budget or a payment reimbursement for that role was very clear. It was also, in my opinion, a very good position in how it paid, because when we were working with artists, athletes, that particular industry, a good pay was hard to come by, and a good structure. So we had that. We had done our work as the directors or the founders to kind of curve that out. So it was looking very good, if I do say so myself. And it attracted someone who could do the work, they wanted it, and they had the capacity for it, which means they had the time for it. So this was an amazing fit. And this person ended up being in the department that brought in the most income. Looking 2 years down after they came in, the value that they brought in monetarily was very significant. Okay, so sounds green, right? Let's talk about our second right fit. Our second right fit was brought in by something I did not expect. When we were growing in our branding, when we started to speak to our audience about our core values, things that matter to us as a business, and in this case, we were talking about a growth mindset for adults. In our business, we're very big on eliminating perfectionism because we work with adults and we work with movement, things like dance. So we were assuring our audience that we are the home of learning for adults when it comes to movement. And it allowed adults to feel, especially beginners, that they would come into our space and belong. So when we started to be loud about our core values, I didn't see it coming, but there was someone who at that time was a client, a customer. They would walk in our doors and leave and come back and leave and come back. So they were a repeat client. And who would have guessed it when they asked for our position in our business? They came to us and they shared with us that I'd love to learn what you're doing because I'd love to do it with you guys specifically. I love where you're going, what you're about, and I want to be part of it. A minute for that, a moment, because it was divine. It actually told me what it means for someone to be right, even culturally. So we induced them, we oriented them, we trained them, we taught them, and they loved it. They enjoyed it, they loved it, they did not shut up about it. They literally became a kind of ambassador, and we were so happy to serve them as part of our team. And this was year 3. They stayed with us for like 1.5 years, and they brought culture. They brought more soul to our business. We literally started to identify new systems, new processes after their behaviors and what they did. So yay, it was very amazing. They gave us a lot to work with. They improved us. And that's when I realized a right person will also increase the value of the business. And we started to look for ways to also increase her experience in its value. We asked her to spread her wings horizontally into the business. Is there another seat you'd like to take? Is there a new department you'd like to create? She was quite the thinker. She was thinking with us, and that was a right fit, and it felt right. However, along the way, she started to increase in an aspect I will call capacity. Her capacity started to increase. She started to kind of outgrow us. And this is something that can happen when you're dealing with people. And we know this, or if I'm saying it in a way that sounds new to you, then let's talk about it. Some people can outgrow you. They can change in their desires, and their life can morph, and they can evolve just as you would. And they might want different things when working with you, and you might not have what they need. So this happened with this right person. Their life started to evolve and to change, and they outgrew us in a way. The thing that we were not ready for was that she would leave, but we saw the signs. So we started to see the behavioral aspects and how stretched she felt and what she was going through in her life. And we realized we need to account for this moment. So what did we do? In our systems, processes, and structures, which is something I'll talk about after this, we realized that, okay, we had put a process whereby she would train her successor as soon as she turned in her resignation, which she did. And so we did not wait for crisis to happen so that we would start looking for successors. As soon as we saw the behavioral kind of the tells, you can tell when someone is either outgrowing you, the questions they will ask you, how frequently they show up the way they used to. It's something that you would need to have the emotional intelligence for. And I really appreciate my co-founder who was able to tell and to catch these tells early enough and to hear the questions that this particular person was asking and realize that, okay, they are looking for something different. And we might not be what they're looking for in the long run. So instead of waiting for crisis to hit, we started hiring proactively, which is something I've not done before, except for this time. So my co-founder brought in this culture where let's stop hiring based off of crisis. Let's prepare for it. Let's have our job descriptions ready, our SOP ready, the interview questions ready, and what it would look like for this person who's leaving to not only train, but to also do apprenticeship with this person, that they would go to our client sites with this person before they exit in due time. So I am so glad that we thought that through, because it came through for us. We were able to meet a resignation with preparation that, otherwise we would have ignored. So we got to see this amazing person leave, but leave in a way that did not injure the business as much as it would in a prior season. So in year 3 and year 4, our structures and systems came through for us. And perhaps I can give you a bit of insight on what that looked like for us. So because I'm the integrator in our business and I'm the one who is in charge of processes, some of the things that I started to clean up for us was, number 1, our job descriptions. What are the roles of people in our business in the major functions? And I know these major functions maybe look like finance, operations, sales and marketing. How do they look like in our business? What are the roles people are accountable to? What are we accountable for as well as the business leaders? And something sweet that's really happened to us in year 4 was that as the directors or as the leaders in our business, we started to discover our unique leadership styles and our unique leadership DNA. So we started to distribute our functions amongst each other according to our abilities, our strengths, and our passion. So this left us ensuring that we are serving our team when we are functioning healthily. So I hope that makes sense. We're functioning healthily, so that means we'll also give to our team in a way that makes them most empowered to do their part well. So when we defined our job description, or something you might know as the organization chart. So for our business, we started to define our organization chart according to not just hierarchy or title, but by responsibility. What are you accountable for? What does your week look like? So our daily, weekly processes. What are the processes that are there in our business? The teacher, what does the teacher do? The coach, the administrator, what does she do or he do? Our finance person, what are they supposed to do? When these started to become clear, hiring became even more clear. We would find the right person or get rid of the wrong person even quicker. The other thing we did that we refined in our systems or our processes and our structure is when it comes to vision, we found a way to describe it better and better. So we started to write down our vision. We had a vision document that we would use in our interviewing. And apart from a vision document, we also had kind of something like a core values speech or conversation that we would share with a person. Hey, our business is largely about emotional intelligence. Our business really needs a person who is professional. In this business, we take seriously things like family, maybe because we serve kids and kids come from families. So we are very intertwined with that system and that culture. So we incorporated our core values in our vision and mission statement. And we started to find ways to ask questions around our core values. The other thing that we did in our system structure and processes is we started to have very clear meeting pulses. So we would have check-ins with the people we're working with to confirm, is everything okay? Would you like something done differently? So we had reviews frequently, not just in once in a year. Oh my goodness, that would be so detrimental for anyone, any business, but we made them frequent. In the quarters, we would break and meet and talk about how we've been doing, what looks unfair, what could be added on to your experience as, you know, someone in our team. And this, it did so much for us. Fast forward to 2025, which is my 5th year in business. When I look back at this 2 specific seasons, so the first 2 years and the other 2 years, the major thing that I would give to you as an early stage founder or business owner is that a cultural fit is just as important as a technical fit. It's amazing that they get it, that they want it, that they have capacity to do it. But could you also have a look at whether they are in line with your core values? So these are some of the hard lessons of my first years in business and the lessons that I learned when it comes to people and human resource. I'm so curious, what was your or has been your experience of a good hire and a bad hire? What are some of the stories that you have to tell about the person who, you know, made you rip your hair out or the person who made you realize that, wow, people is a big component of successful businesses. And that's it for this episode, guys. If you are new here, by the way, welcome to the Bold Builders community. We talk about authentic stories as we build in business. It's not cute, it gets very ugly, but we're here for it, even for the wins. So karibu sana. If you were listening to this episode and you realize that you have a kind of messiness around your systems, structures, and your processes as an early stage business, you are not sure who's accountable for what, or your team is not that sure of exactly what they're accountable for, you don't have your job descriptions, you are not feeling quite ready to delegate, though your business actually needs it. And you're wondering, if I delegate and I invite people into my team, they're coming into a messy situation. I would love to help you clean that situation up in your systems, in your structure, and in your processes. If this is for you, there's a link in the description and you can get more information on that. Meanwhile, that's it for today, guys. See you in the next video.